Hello, my name's Sean Brown from WiSen Innovation, and in this WiSen Quick Guide video series, I'm going to just highlight the data export functions and particularly focus on the CSV export capability. So going into a project we have here, the data export and import functions are within download and upload, and we see the export and the import functions here. So that would be for the FTP, the API, and the CSV side of things. There is another way of extracting data out, which is more just on a manual approach. For example, I've plotted a node or a particular attribute I'm interested in. And if I right click, then obviously I have the ability to export the data here. Now the normal approach would be to use the export functions. And what I need to do first of all is probably just make you aware that the data as you have it, so data that doesn't have any calculation or any conversion is displayed within the node tab. So this was data show table node. So this would be how you attain the data when you give it to a customer or how you got it initially. When you've nulled the data, zeroed it, then obviously if you're looking at a tilmeter example and you've nulled the X or the Y or the Z, then obviously these would be reflected as 0 here. Now, if you're doing a conversion or a calculation, that is what we call a virtual node. Now, I press virtual node here, I can see that one's been created. Now, how that's controlled and how this is populated is through setup, virtual type and virtual node. And I can see what's happened earlier is there has been an entry by pressing add. The name of the calculation's been added or the conversion. The formula has been manually imported, manually created, or there's been an import button. And so far it's been partly populated. So this is just an example of what you see here. It's important that once you've created this and it's correct, you then advance to virtual node update, and that then back calculates the data for the historic data that was in place before the calculation created. That would obviously give you then a virtual node. Now the reason for doing that is if I go and advance to data export, you can see that the same tabs appear. We have node and virtual node. Now if you've done a calculation or a conversion, it would be the virtual node you'd be taking out. If you're taking the raw data to a third-party software where you're going to undertake the calculations or the nulling and so forth, then you would be using the node tab where I'm at the moment. Now both tabs are essentially or have the same export capabilities. Just going to go back to the node tab. We have CSV download, we have the SFTP or the FTP, and we have the API. Now I've attached the two guides that cover the FTP and the API. API really should be the more popular approach to extracting data off the WiSen server now. FTP exists obviously as a function, it's a bit more old school, or the sort of more manual approach is the CSV, and this is the one you wanted to focus in at present. I can see here at the bottom the log entry that this has been undertaken in the past using the template you see here at present. And we have here two default templates we give you, and we can see here a couple of that have been created as custom templates. Now, if we're talking about strain gauges and crack meter or computations and export results, then we're going to look at the virtual node, and for that reason, I'm going to focus on this. So you've got to remember here that if you're on node and you're looking at the template settings, you're looking at the templates created for just the node tab. I went to virtual node and I went to the template setting, and you can see here we're looking at the templates associated to the virtual node tab. We do not see the same templates, completely different outputs. These are conversions and calculations. So obviously this is the only virtual node you've created thus far. This is the default entry as you see it. Now if this was not the default and you wanted this to be named something very specific, then if I was to sort of tick, if I for example make a change and I tick the header, we have the save as button, and we'd name this template as we see fit. So I'm going to give this a name, example test 01, press confirm. there might be other changes you want. So output is required to be ticked. If you had several virtual nodes, then obviously if you didn't have output ticked, you would not be attaining that data out, regardless of CSV or FTP. By including all new nodes, so any extra calculations you add will be automatically added to this schedule here, and obviously included in the export. We have hidden data, so you have the ability in WiSen to hide data when it's an outlier, but you're including the outlier data here. And the type of file you want. So it's a decimal point between numbers. We want the value. So you've got the ability to change the settings you see here. Currently it's a Unix timestamp. If you want it to be ISO 8601, for instance, so it's year, month, day, hour, minute, second, press confirm. Or if you want customize, you can go through and tailor this to suit. So I'm just going to pick this one. And you can see the example. So we are getting out the timestamp, the virtual type, the virtual node, and the value. So this would be the name of the virtual type would be the name of the calculation. So this might be created, well, it is created as SG_con_FRM. And then the virtual node would be the individual sensor within this group. If there was something here you didn't require, for instance, you only wanted the timestamp, the actual name of the sensor, and the value, you press modify, and we could obviously take away the virtual type. So if we double click, that disappears, and we don't want the other comma, and we leave it as it is, and we press confirm, and obviously every change you do, you want to update. So if you press save as, you're creating another template on top of the existing one. If you're happy to use the template you have at the moment, then obviously press update. Now, if you wanted to add back in that virtual example and you had a specific location you wanted to be in the file, then obviously if I click at this location, I press virtual type, you see it reappears. We need a comma. We can see where the cursor is flashing. We press the comma. We've added a comma. We press confirm. And we put it back to how it was originally, and obviously we press update. So that's controlling the template, defining the template, naming it as you see fit. Obviously, once you've created the template, you have the ability then to go to the SFTP or FTP, set this up as you require, and then that template would be exported out. You wanted to cover the CSV side, so we're just going to go look at the CSV. So this is a slightly changed with the Christmas release. You have essentially two options now to obtain the data out. There's an instant download, which is a very manual approach of logging in, picking the data range you want, or utilizing the shortcut, making sure you select the template, and pressing export. Obviously, the file gets generated as you see here, and we press the manual download button. So now we have a kind of semi-automated approach, should we call it that, where again, we pick the template, whether you want a single file all in one or single files separated by virtual nodes. You might have lots of virtual node calculations. Let's give an example, railway line, can, twist. Each of those files will be split up so you can have separate files. And if there's any kind of help required here to understand the different data end epochs, so data end in the file. So what you pick here in option 1, 2, and 3 defines the data end in the file. So if you want it to be, if you pick 7 o'clock when the file was created and you want that to be the exact end time of the data, then obviously you would pick option 1. If you wanted it to be the data up to midnight on the previous day and you created a file at 7 a.m. the next day, you'd pick option 2 and so forth. But please read this in your own time so you can understand the options. Then obviously you've got the data period, so a file generated potentially every day containing 1 day of data, and obviously emailed every day. So that's 1 day's data. Emails created at this time, it contains 1 day of data, and so forth. So you can see the concept, and then you send it to the email that you require. So a semi-automated approach in which the data is sent to a an email address, and perhaps you can pick it up that way. So similar in some concepts to the FTP. I'm just going to log out and log in as your L3 user, and I believe this is the your colleagues in India. And the reason for doing this is I can see they're using the FTP. So here they have some virtual node calculations. They have 3 as an example. We would go to data export. As I mentioned earlier, they are a virtual node calculation. They have not changed it from the WiSen alias default. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If I go into here, then they're happy to accept the default. It's giving them the output they require. Everything's ticked for what the requirements are. And if I went to the FTP, you can see they've got the FTP set up with the template file selected. They're having it as all in one. Again, the little help button here, just going to click on it. Again, something to read kind of in your own time, just to understand how and what's in the file. So that's controlling that side. And sorry, this one's not being populated. I think the raw data is coming out. So we're just going to look at the node. Sorry, here we go. So the raw data is actually being pushed, not the calculated data for whatever reason. Completely up to you guys how you want to tackle that. And obviously we see the user, the password, etc., and where it's being pushed to. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a background and understanding into the export capabilities.